Welcome to the Gross Snack.
Hey there.
Today we're diving into a book that definitely gets people talking. Sometimes sparks a bit of controversy too.
Oh, yeah. Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
Exactly. And our mission here really is to unpack some of the most potent ideas from this book.
Right. Think of it like getting a concentrated dose of how the book sees power dynamics, influence, strategy, drawn straight from the historical examples Greene uses.
We're basically pulling out the core insights so you can get a quicker handle on some fundamental, maybe sometimes uncomfortable truths about human interaction, at least as the book describes them.
Yeah, it doesn't shy away from the, let's say, darker side of things sometimes.
Not at all. So maybe we should start with how the book talks about managing perception. Seems key.
Definitely. Greene puts a massive emphasis on appearance. The book basically argues that what you project, how you seem, is often way more important than the actual reality.
Okay, so that leads right into, Law 6, court attention at all cost.
That's the one. Court attention at all cost.
Sounds bold. Maybe even a bit reckless.
Yeah.
Why does the book say attention is that crucial?
Well, the perspective in the book is pretty stark. In a world crowded with people and messages being ignored, being obscure, that's like death, strategically speaking.
So you have to stand out somehow.
You have to, yeah. Whether it's, creating a spectacle or maybe cultivating an air of mystery, just getting noticed is step one for gaining any kind of influence. The book even says, better to be slandered than ignored.
Wow. Okay. Like P.T. Barnum, the showman. The book uses him as an example, right? How he deliberately stir things up.
Exactly. That's a prime example in the book. Barnum totally got that negative attention was still attention. It made people curious, made them want to see what all the fuss was about.
So any kind of notoriety works.
According to the book, yeah, it can be leveraged. Or think about Count Lustig, the con artist. The book points out how he'd project this image of being mysterious, kind of aloof, but also lavish, staying in fancy hotels. It made people really curious. They wanted to be associated with him.
And that distracted them.
Totally. Distracted them from his real intentions. The book suggests that an air of mystery can make even something, pretty average seem powerful or intriguing.
Okay, so managing appearances, grabbing attention, that feels connected to another law you mentioned, Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim.
It really is connected, yeah. The book isn't framing honesty here as, like, a moral good. It's presented more as a tactical tool.
How so?
The core idea is that one single, maybe unexpected act of honesty or a generous gesture, it can strategically lower someone's defenses, make them less suspicious.
The example from the book about the art dealer Joseph Duveen in the National Gallery in D.C. that really stuck with me.
Oh yeah, that's a classic illustration the book uses. And it points out, look, this grand gesture wasn't just pure altruism.
Right.
It let his rich clients donate art, look good, get tax breaks. They appeared philanthropic, and this whole facade, which Duveen enabled, built huge trust.
Disarmed them, like the law says.
Yeah. Exactly. Made them more open to his deals later on. So it ultimately served his business interests, according to the book's analysis.
It really makes you second-guess seemingly kind gestures sometimes, doesn't it? Wonder about the motive.
The book definitely encourages that kind of critical look, viewing things through that power lens, but it also offers a warning.
Which is?
If you already have a reputation for being, let's say, deceitful, the book says sudden honesty doesn't disarm people. It actually just makes them more suspicious.
That feels, pretty fundamental, maybe a bit cynical. It's an uncomfortable view of human motivation presented in the book.
It is stark, yeah. But the book argues pretty forcefully that people are primarily driven by what benefits them. Right here, right now.
Not by, past favors or feeling sorry for you?
The book suggests relying on that stuff. Gratitude, pity is naive. Those are just weak levers compared to showing someone how they'll gain something immediately.
The book uses the Athenians wanting an alliance with Corcyra against Corinth as an example. They didn't bring up old debts or anything.
The book describes them as realists. They focused only on the strategic edge, the economic benefits Corcyra would get by siding with them against Corinth. Purely pragmatic.
Mutual self-interest.
Exactly, which the book claims is just far more persuasive than emotional appeals.
And what about that other story, Yelu Ch'u-ts'ai, saving Chinese culture from Genghis Khan?
Oh, that's a brilliant example according to the book. Genghis Khan basically wanted to flatten Chinese cities, turn them into grazing lands, saw no value there.
So Ch'u-ts'ai didn't plead for mercy or culture.
No, he was smarter than that, the book implies. He convinced the Khan that leaving the city standing and taxing them would bring in way, way more wealth than pasture land ever could.
Ah, appealing directly to the Khan's desire for riches.
Precisely, hitting that core self-interest, which the book identifies as incredibly powerful.
Okay, so we've got managing appearances, appealing to self-interest. The book also seems to spend a lot of time on potential pitfalls, right? Things to avoid even when you think you're winning.
Absolutely, it's full of cautionary tales. A really critical one is Law 47. Do not go past the mark you aim for. In victory, learn when to stop.
That feels a bit counterintuitive, though. Wouldn't victory be the exact time to push harder? Press your advantage.
See, the book warns that the moment of victory is often when you're most dangerous to yourself. Overconfidence kicks in. Pushing too far can backfire badly. You might create new enemies who were neutral before, or just stretch yourself too thin, losing what you gained. The key, the book suggests, is knowing when your objective is met. Then consolidate. Don't just keep expanding blindly.
The book uses Cyrus the Great as an example of getting it wrong. A transgression.
Yeah. After building this huge empire, the book says Cyrus got overconfident, launched one last campaign, went too far east, and it ended disastrously. Led to his death, destabilized things, he went past the mark.
And the flip side, someone who got it right.
The book contrasts him with Madame de Pompadour, Louis XIV's mistress. She apparently kept her powerful position for ages, partly because she knew when to stop. After winning some court battle against rivals, she wouldn't unnecessarily crush them. She understood restraint after hitting her goal.
Interesting. Okay, another pitfall the book talks about seems to be about security. Law 18. Do not build fortresses of isolation to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous.
Yeah, and this one also runs against a pretty natural instinct, right? When you feel threatened, you want to pull back, lock the doors.
Sure, hunker down.
But the book argues isolating yourself is actually really risky. It cuts you off from crucial information. What are people saying? What are they planning? And it makes you a really obvious stationary target.
Like the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huangdi. The book uses him as the example here.
It does. Describes his later years becoming more and more isolated inside his palace complex. He lost touch.
And people took advantage.
Exactly. He wasn't aware of the political games happening, so eunuchs and ministers could seize power behind his back. Now, compare that, the book suggests, to Louis XIV, the Sun King.
With Versailles. But that seems like the ultimate fortress. Huge palace, very imposing.
But the book interprets Versailles very differently. It argues it wasn't just a display of power, it was a brilliant strategic move.
How so?
By forcing the powerful, often rebellious nobility to live at court with him, Louis kept them close, under his constant watch.
Ah, so they couldn't go off on their own and play.
Precisely. He prevented them from gathering strength and isolation away from his influence. So the book suggests being surrounded, even by rivals, can actually be a form of protection, a way to gather intelligence. Isolation cuts you off.
Okay, wow. Lots to think about there. And maybe one more, Law 40. Despise the free lunch. That feels pretty universal.
It really does. A simple warning, but the book argues it's incredibly important. Be extremely wary of anything offered for free.
Why is that?
Because, the book posits, there's almost always a hidden catch, a hidden obligation, some kind of trick, a cost down the line. Paying your own way, the book insists, maintains your independence, avoids getting tangled up.
Like the Spanish conquistadors chasing El Dorado, the free gold.
Exactly. The book uses that as a perfect example, this relentless pursuit of effortless free wealth.
And the native populations use that against them.
According to the book, yes. They'd feed the Spaniards stories, lead them on these wild goose chases deep into dangerous jungles, knowing the Spaniards' greed for that free lunch would make them follow. It was a way to get rid of them, essentially using their own avarice against them.
So, okay, we've skimmed across quite a few laws here from the 48 Laws of Power. Looking at controlling perception, understanding self-interest, the dangers in victory and isolation, being wary of free stuff.
Yeah, just scratching the surface, really. And it's important to remember how the book presents these not as, like, moral instructions, but as observations drawn from history about how power dynamics often work in the raw.
Right. The book suggests the world often functions like a kind of strategic court, and just trying to opt out, ignore these dynamics that can actually leave you powerless or vulnerable.
That's the core argument, I think. The real takeaway isn't necessarily go out and use all these laws. It's more about recognizing these patterns when you see them out in the world, understanding interactions, maybe even looking back at your own past experiences through this particular lens the book provides.
Becoming a more astute observer, maybe?
I think that's a good way to put it, yeah.
So here's maybe a final thought for you, something the book touches on to mull over as you go about your day. Greene highlights that often those who put on the biggest show of being morally superior are actually the most skilled in manipulating things indirectly. And they really, really dislike having their methods pointed out or exposed.
That's provocative.
It is. So the question is, what does that suggest about where you might want to focus your own critical thinking and observation? Something to chew on.